Welcome to Weathersfield Proctor Library Storytime. I'm Glenna Coleman, Youth Services Librarian, and I'm here with our library bear. We've picked out a couple of stories for you this week about, let's say, tricksters or gullibility or who can fool who. So let's see if you can figure out who's fooling who in these stories. Our first story is called Dr. Desoto, and that is by William Steig. I wonder if you can guess what kind of teeth those are from the picture. Well, here we go. Dr. Desoto by William Steig. Dr. Desoto, the dentist, did very good work, so he had no end of patients. Those close to his own size, moles, chipmunks, etc., sat in the regular dentist's chair. Larger animals sat on the floor while Dr. Desoto stood on a ladder. For extra large animals, he had a special room. There, Dr. Desoto was hoisted up to the patient's mouth by his assistant, who also happened to be his wife. Dr. Desoto was especially popular with the big animals. He was able to work inside their mouths wearing rubbers to keep his feet dry, and his fingers were so delicate and his drill so dainty they could hardly feel any pain. Being a mouse, he refused to treat animals dangerous to mice, and it said so on his sign. When the doorbell rang, he and his wife would look out the window. They wouldn't admit even the most timid-looking cat. Dr. Desoto, dentist, cats and other dangerous animals not accepted for treatment. Smart mice. One day, when they looked out, they saw a well-dressed fox with a flannel bandage around his jaw. "I cannot treat you, sir," Dr. Desoto shouted. "Sir, haven't you read my sign?" "Please," the fox wailed, "have mercy, I'm suffering." And he wept so bitterly it was pitiful to see. "Just a moment," said Dr. Desoto. "That poor fox," he whispered to his wife. "What shall we do?" "Let's risk it," said Mrs. Dr. Desoto. She pressed the buzzer and let the fox in. He was up the stairs in a flash. "Bless your little hearts," he cried, falling to his knees. "I beg you, do something. My tooth is killing me." "Sit on the floor, sir," said Dr. Desoto, "and remove the bandage, please." Dr. Desoto climbed up the ladder and bravely entered the fox's mouth. "Wow," he gasped. The fox had a rotten bicuspid and unusually bad breath. "This tooth will have to come out," Dr. Desoto announced, "but we can make you a new one." "Just stop the pain," whimpered the fox, wiping some tears away. Despite his misery, he realized he had a tasty little morsel in his mouth, and his jaw began to quiver. "Keep open!" yelled Dr. Desoto. "Wide open!" yelled his wife. "I'm giving you gas now," said Dr. Desoto. "You won't feel a thing when I yank that tooth." Soon the fox was in dreamland. Yum," he mumbled. "How I love them raw, with just a pinch of salt and a dry white wine." They could guess what he was dreaming about. Mrs. Desoto handed her husband a pole to keep the fox's mouth open. Dr. Desoto fastened his extractor to the bad tooth. Then he and his wife began turning the winch. Finally, with a sucking sound, the tooth popped out and hung swaying in the air. "I'm bleeding," the fox yelped when he came to. Dr. Desoto ran up the ladder and stuffed some gauze in the hole. "The worst is over," he said. "I'll have your new tooth ready tomorrow. Be here at 11 sharp." The fox, still woozy, said goodbye and left. On his way home, he wondered if it would be shabby of him to eat the Desotos when the job was done. After office hours, Mrs. Desoto molded a tooth of pure gold and polished it. "Raw with salt, indeed," muttered Dr. Desoto. "How foolish to trust a fox." "He didn't know what he was saying," said Mrs. Desoto. "Why should he harm us? We're helping him." "Because he's a fox," said Dr. Desoto. "They're wicked, wicked creatures." That night, the Desotos lay awake worrying. "Should we let him in tomorrow?" Mrs. Desoto wondered. "Once I start a job," said the dentist firmly, "I finish it. My father was the same way." "But we must do something to protect ourselves," said his wife. They talked and talked until they formed a plan. "I think it will work," said Dr. Desoto. A minute later, he was snoring. The next morning, promptly at 11, a very cheerful fox turned up. He was feeling not a particle of pain. When Dr. Desoto got into his mouth, he snapped it shut for a moment, then opened wide and laughed. "Just a joke," he chortled. "Be serious," said the dentist sharply. "We have work to do." His wife was lugging the heavy tooth up the ladder. "Oh, I love it!" exclaimed the fox. "It's just beautiful." Dr. Desoto set the gold tooth in its socket and hooked it up to the teeth on both sides. The fox caressed the new tooth with his tongue. "My, it feels good," he thought. "I really shouldn't eat them. On the other hand, how can I resist?" Excuse me. "We're not finished," said Dr. Desoto, holding up a large jug. Excuse me. "I have here a remarkable preparation developed only recently by my wife and me. With just one application, you can be rid of toothaches forever. How would you like to be the first one to receive this unique treatment?" "I certainly would," the fox declared. "I'd be honored." He hated any kind of personal pain. "You will never have to see us again," said Dr. Desoto. "No one will see you again," said the fox to himself. He had definitely made up his mind to eat them, with the help of his brand new tooth. Dr. Desoto stepped into the fox's mouth with a bucket of secret formula and proceeded to paint each tooth. He hummed as he worked. Mrs. Desoto stood by on the ladder, pointing out spots he had missed. The fox looked very happy. When the dentist was done, he stepped out. "Now, close your jaws tight," he said, "and keep them closed for a full minute." The fox did as he was told. Then he tried to open his mouth, but his teeth were stuck together. Excuse me, I should have mentioned," said Dr. Desoto. "You won't be able to open your mouth for a day or two. The secret formula must first permeate the dentine. But don't worry, no pain ever again." The fox was stunned. He stared at Dr. Desoto, then at his wife. They smiled and waited. All he could do was say, "Frank will very much," through his clenched teeth, and get up and leave. He tried to do so with dignity. Then he stumbled down the stairs in a daze. Dr. Desoto and his assistant had outfoxed the fox. They kissed each other and took the rest of the day off. Well, I hope you enjoyed Dr. Desoto by William Steig. I'm sure you figured out who was going to be the trickster and who ended up being the trickster instead. Oh, we have another book about tricking, and this is called Gullibles Troubles. Gullibles Troubles is written and illustrated by Margaret Shannon. Gullibles Troubles. Gullible Guinea Pig was visiting Aunt Sarah, Uncle Bernard, and Cousin Lila, all by himself. His aunt and uncle and cousin knew Gullible would believe anything that he was told. "You know, there are monsters all over the house, Gullible, and in the garden too," said Cousin Lila. "Little guinea pigs are their favorite thing to eat." Gullible didn't like this idea one bit. He went to see if Aunt Sarah needed any help. She was baking a cake. But, although Gullible tried very hard, he wasn't much help at all. So Aunt Sarah said, "Did you know, Gullible, that if you eat 50 carrots one after the other, you become invisible?" Gullible thought that sounded like great fun. Aunt Sarah gave him a big basket of carrots that were getting moldy and told him to go and eat them in the front room. Gullible ate and ate and ate until he'd eaten all 50 carrots. Then, feeling rather ill, he went and looked in the mirror to see if he was invisible. But he wasn't. He'd just gone a bit orange in the face. They must have been too old, Gullible said to himself, and thought he'd go and see what Cousin Lila was doing. Cousin Lila was dressing up for a party. Gullible decided to dress up too. But he started getting a bit carried away. So Cousin Lila said, "Gullible, would you like to take these soccer boots of mine and try them out? They're the sort the real soccer players use." Gullible had always wanted proper soccer boots. He got out his soccer ball and went downstairs to put the boots on. But they were a bit big for him, and they wobbled when he tried to dribble the ball. Gullible decided he'd just get used to walking in them for now, and went to see what Uncle Bernard was doing. Uncle Bernard was very busy, so Gullible thought he would help by tidying up his papers for him. Uncle Bernard said, "If you really want to help, Gullible, you could wash these dirty pieces of coal for me, so I can light the fire." Gullible felt very useful as he carried the coal into the pantry and started scrubbing it with a scrubbing brush. But the coal never seemed to get any cleaner. It just got smaller and smaller until there wasn't any left. Gullible hurried off to find out where he could get some more coal. He asked Cousin Lila, who was in the front room, checking out her party dress. "Well, the coal's in the cellar, where the cellar monster lives," she said. "But if you walk on your hands, it won't eat you." The cellar was very dark. Gullible carefully walked on his hands down the stairs and over to the coal chute. He could just see the cellar monster's feet sticking out from the darkest corner. Right there. He filled the coal bucket and made his way back up the stairs as quickly as he could, nearly bumping into his aunt at the top. "Aunt Sarah, remember to walk on your hands or you'll get eaten," Gullible cried. Aunt Sarah just laughed. Gullible waited and waited, but Aunt Sarah didn't come back. He ran to tell Uncle Bernard and Cousin Lila what had happened. "What nonsense, Gullible," said Uncle Bernard. "Lila and I will go down and find out what's going on." Uncle Bernard and Cousin Lila didn't come back either, but there was something coming up the cellar stairs, something with very large, heavy feet. Gullible thought that this would be a good time to go, but there were those monsters in the garden to get past. So he ran into the kitchen, quickly ate 50 non-moldy carrots, found his soccer ball, and put on his new soccer boots, and ran home. "Hey, Gullible, come back, we were just kidding." "Yes, silly, of course there aren't monsters in the cellar." "Mama, Papa, look." "Really? What's that?" And there's Gullible at home. Well, this was a bit unexpected. Who was trying to trick who in Gullible's troubles? by Margaret Shannon, and who actually tricked who? See if you can figure that out. Well, Library Bear and I hope you enjoyed those stories of tricking and being tricked, and turning the tables. We'll see you at our next story time. I'm Glenna Coleman, Youth Services Librarian, with our Library Bear at the Weathersfield Proctor Library. Goodbye.